Whether they are the same or whether they are different depends on the attendance. What I try to do is whatever questions or discussions you have, then I try and approach that topic, whatever it may be. When it's users that are specific, that want specific ideas, or how do I specifically do specific tasks, I can do those as well. I try to do those on the fly. Jason and I came up with what we were thinking we would be covering today, just to give you guys a better broad view. But at the same time, the second session, we may want to delve deeper into whatever problems you're having or what you would like to see. But here's what we're looking at. Some of you may have received a package saying that we now have a new product called SOLIDWORKS Electrical Standard. What is it? What's the difference between standard and professional and schematic? Because of course now we've got all these different electrical products and they all encompass different things. And then of course I want to talk a little bit about the DASI blogs and Facebook and some of these other resources that you can tap into other electrical users and be able to actually interface with them as well. And then I want to get into working with reports in the software. How do we customize them? What kinds of things can we do with them? Just what kind of capabilities are actually built into that you may or may not have thought about. What are project macros? In the software, we've got project macros. They came out in 2016 here. It's something new that you can now take very large amounts of circuitry and actually use them in a library type function to be able to use them over and over again. And then what are locations? So we had talked about that a little bit. Locations in the software are kind of ambiguous unless you really are familiar with what the terminology is, because the terminology makes a difference for how you're organizing your project. So we'll get into that a little bit, and then we'll get into some questions or any further. Now we've got 45 minutes to go through this. If there's any topics that you are really not interested in, please just let me know. And we can just skip over that and then address any other things that you want to see. If there's specific stuff that you would like to see in the software, Kyle, if you've got any specific questions you would like answered, we can delve into that, which will, of course, just give a broad view of what the software is capable of in the meantime. All right? Cool. All right, so let's get started in the software a little bit, just because I want to point out what the differences are that we've got for SOLIDWORKS Electrical here. So SOLIDWORKS Electrical, this is our schematic package. Now I am just going to go ahead and open up a standard template at this point, which has only got maybe a couple, I don't even know if I have, I guess I was playing around and created some circuitry and also just some layouts for title blocks, and here's just a standard harness. Now, the reason I am bringing this up is because I wanted to point out, we're going to look at what SOLIDWORKS Standard is. SOLIDWORKS Standard is basically a skeleton version of our SOLIDWORKS schematic product. When I say schematic, I mean just that. It is not just electrical. It is pneumatic and hydraulic as well. So if you're looking at needing to do anything with a schematic, any type of blueprint, the software will allow you to do it. It is just lines, it is just flow, it is just connectivity between different devices. What's nice is, like with a valve, you have an air valve, but at the same time you've got an electric connection to it. So you can actually start tying your different departments that right now, as in school, mechanic is taught over here, electric is taught over here. Now you can start marrying those two departments together, those two fields together, because now you can actually utilize the same software to make them communicate just a little bit better. I know when I went to school, electric engineers went this way, mechanical engineers went this way, and the only time you met was when you went and ate lunch, and then you passed, and then you went back to your own scenario. And so this is going to allow you to be able to see some of that stuff better. Now, let me just show you real quick, because some of you have not seen this. I'm not sure how many have actually seen the software before. In schematic, we have a number of symbols, and those symbols even if I were to look for just hydraulic and pneumatic, as you can see right here, I can come down and pneumatic, here we go. If I look at just the pneumatic and hydraulic symbols, you can see that I have numerous symbols to use. So I can create piping drawings, just like I can electric drawings. A wire is flow, a pipe is flow. It's just a matter of what the internal contents is. All right, so that being the case, let's look at what the software has here. What we are looking at is that, as I mentioned, SOLIDWORKS Standard is a cut-down version of our schematic package. This is the full-blown package. I have 2D and 3D. We're just going to stick with the 2D because it turns out that Standard only works with 2D. You cannot go into the 3D environment with the existing software. Standard is for one person only. The way the software is set up is that you have communication to libraries, which are all handled through the SQL database. That database allows you to have a number of different things. It has title blocks, it has project templates, it has your symbols, it has your manufacturer's data. All of that information is in the SQL. With our schematic package, that data can be put on a server that can be shared among multiple users. Standard keeps it on one local system. You don't share it with anybody. It is yours and yours only. So there is no such thing as a global standard because it is just yours. It doesn't work with a floating license like what you're used to with SOLIDWORKS. SOLIDWORKS has those floating licenses through your license manager that you can actually utilize multiple people. This is a captive license. It is cheaper than schematic because there are a number of things that it doesn't have, as well as that collaborative environment for multiple users. One of the big things is that there is a PLC Manager we have in schematic, and unfortunately, that is limited when you are using Standard. You will not have this availability. I can manage my PLCs. I can add PLCs here. I'll just go ahead and add one. Drop in some pieces here, find some PLCs, simply add it. And then what ends up happening is that I can add modules to this now. Start adding extra modules. Well, let's just add a module here to that. Grab another piece. This part, if you are looking at wanting to add, whoops, closer just a little bit too far. This part where I am actually looking at these devices, these inputs, these outputs, this type of information you can start managing, adding your descriptions, adding your I/O, as far as the addressing. All of that type of stuff is handled inside this manager. With Standard, this manager doesn't exist. It's created as a component, and then you basically have a lot of manual work of typing in text in order to get descriptions in, possibly changing I/O points, any of that type of stuff. So this being available is actually quite beneficial if you are doing PLCs. I do have customers that have Standard. They do a little bit of PLCs, but it's very minimal. Therefore, the amount of time the software is saving them in other areas, they have still purchased the software, and that part they do manually. So that's one area. Another area that we have, as you are, if you are familiar with our software, is these reports. These reports, you end up having, you can grab that up again. You have a number of reports that are given to you. These reports, it's just a matter of selecting which reports you want to use, and then it will actually show you a live window of the SQL query of those reports. So it will give you all kinds of data, which means if you are looking for a list of all the wire tags that you use, whether it be 1 through 12, whether it be 100 through 500, all of those are actually listed. And not only are they listed, but it'll tell you the quantity that's used in the project right away. One of the other ones that I like here is, of course, the bill of materials that's grouped by location manufacturer. We'll get into the locations later and what those locations are actually referring to. But this information right here becomes, these are automatic. This is a one button push. This is that Staples easy button. That all you have to do now is push this button to say, this is the report I want. The minute I select it, just by saying like this list of wire tags, I will select that one there and say okay. It then brings it up and then gives me, if I have information here, which of course I don't. Oh, I selected the wrong one. Let's try that again. Let's select. Let's select list of wire tags. Yep, I selected the wrong one. That's the one that I want. There we go. All right. Well, it looks like I have 8 wires or 8 spots with absolutely no tags to it right now. Obviously, I need to do some numbering. We'll do that real quick here, just so that way I have something. We will do the process of numbering the new wires, which are those 4 wires there. As you see, it brought in those 4 wires. I go back into my report. Project report. And now you see I have 4 wires marked 1, 2, 3, and 4, and the quantity of 2. I can export that to an Excel spreadsheet now, print it out in a Braille labeler, and all of a sudden I have everything that my panel builder needs to actually start taping wires. So the software is allowing for all of this in this scenario. If you want to make changes to the report is very easy to change, which we will look at in the next section here. Any type of customizing to this report cannot be done in standard. You can select the reports, but you are using the generic reports that are given. Standard will not allow you to make any changes. Okay? Those are 2 of the biggest areas that are different between standard. Standard is a couple of thousand short or lighter as far as price. But again, it's one user, all by themselves, no collaboration among people. So if you've got more than one student working on that, you're trying to share a project, Standard will let you do that, which I know the software that comes with the SolidWorks for the robotics is a collaborative service. So that will let a number of students all work on the same project at one time. The only difference is that they can only work on one sheet at a time. If you've got somebody opening something and you're making changes, nobody else can get in to actually make changes to that specific sheet. So somebody could be working on the controls for the drive system while another one's working on the vacuum system, while another one's working on maybe the actual controller or whatever the case is. You can actually do everything in separate areas. And it's just through this collaborative service that you can actually all be on one project. Any questions with that so far?
Is this schematics included in the educational packages?
That you would have to talk with them.
Okay.
That's another topic all in itself. I know we have talked about in the past with some of the schools. Anyway, okay, so we're going to move on. So in the PowerPoint here, so that was the first one here that we were talking about, standard. Okay, so Jason, did we cover that to your happiest heart's content, or was there more that you wanted to see?
No, that's a good overview.
Perfect. All right, so the side blogs, Facebook, other resources. If you've got SolidWorks Electrical, you may have noticed or may not have noticed the pane over here on your right-hand side. This pane, you also have other panes available to you. If you go to view, you will notice that you have 2 sections. One is normally for the left, the other one is normally for the right. Utilizing these, you can actually come to the house, which is actually your resources. And right there, if I turn that one, let's see, I'm going to actually turn the macro off for a minute. Under my resources here, you will see that you have direct access to customer portals, user groups, and even discussion forums. Has anybody used those before? No? These here, you can talk with other electrical users right on the spot. You can get into some of the other information as far as how do I do stuff. You can throw it up here on one of the forums.
and you will get responses like crazy. It's absolutely amazing. I did not hook up to the internet, so I can't pull this up. I mean, if you want to give me a minute, I can do that. But otherwise, you do have also some partner solutions in the content here. I believe I've walked you through how to upgrade your service so that you can actually get all those catalogs. Jason and I walked you through it when we did our last user group. We went through that electrical content portal, which gives you 13 million manufacturers' parts. That is how many parts we now have available, because what's happening is we're getting such a user base that now the manufacturers want free advertising to get their parts out there to the people. So what they've done is they've created their own catalogs for our software so that they can now be imported into our software package through the library. So we've got people just jumping at the best. So even if you don't have the catalog you're looking for, you can actually request it. All you have to do is ask for the content, and then SolidWorks will go out and talk with that manufacturer and get their catalogs. We've got that many people using the software already. So it's really kind of cool, and that works for hydraulics and pneumatics as well. So it's just one more thing to add to the many that gives you this. But at the same time, the SI, one of my many tasks that I do is I get tasked with writing a blog every so often. I think it's about once a month. Anybody ever seen the DASI blogs? No? DASI has a blog. DASI has a Twitter account. Can you believe that? We have a Twitter account. We have a Facebook account. And actually, if you get onto, let me go say not now, and let's go to Facebook. Right now, Darren, myself, every one of our application engineers, we are required to write blogs. Those blogs are technical tips that are about 2 minutes long, maybe maybe a paragraph, maybe a page, on how to do specific things in SolidWorks, simulation, plastics, welding, electrical. They're right there at your fingertips. Free little resources. All you have to do, I'll bet you Nathan has a Facebook account, doesn't he? You got your phone on you? Look up DASI Solutions. Let me see, I'll cancel this and see if I can find it faster than you can.
My phone's slow, so
DASI Solutions. Over 37,000 people right now are watching DASI Solutions on our website. Let's see here. What do I have? We got all kinds of things. Right here, SolidWorks. Aaron, who's presenting up there doing patterns right now, he creates video tech trips, and it's called Darren the DASI Guy. Bill Nye, the science guy. Aaron, yes, the SolidWorks guy. So this one here that he put out, and this was on May 13th, how to create internal volume. He's also done I think there's like 5 or 6 of these videos that are out now. We also put them on YouTube. So DASI has YouTube videos out there. Same type of stuff. So not just electrical, just because I don't want to keep you all, all just in electrical. So there are other ways to actually get these resources, get other information, to find other ways to do things right there at your fingertips. So just a little, find it?
yeah.
You just liked it.
Cool. Now you'll start getting those tech tips. You'll start learning all about that. All right, so I just wanted to let you know that. We've got Twitter sites, we've got Facebook sites. Help yourself and have fun. All right, let's look at these reports. These reports, as I mentioned already, are reports that are automatically generated. So when I look at this, when I say that easy button, what I'm referring to is, yeah, you can pick any report you're wanting. So even this bill of materials here, do I have anything? Sure. It's going to automatically start counting, keeping track of my marks. What if I want to make changes to this? What if I don't like this layout? This is actually quite easy to make changes to. Each report has properties. These properties can be set up to show in any direction you want. Notice the graphic section up at the top.
I can open up this window and it works the same in any area of our software that uses this. I can simply come in here, I can pan it, I can zoom it, I can see exactly what's going on as I'm making my changes. So if I want to add columns, I can come over here to this columns button, find everything that is available in this report to use. If I want specific pieces of information, maybe I want to see, if I use 3D as well, maybe I want to see whether I have an X, Y, or Z, or maybe even a length. I simply select those, and it's going to add a column here. It's that easy. If I don't like the way that these are called out, maybe I don't want reference, maybe I want to call it part number. When I do that, it goes ahead and accepts it, and all I have to do is hit apply. And now when I close this, I now have, notice here, let me go ahead and open this up more. So I just added quantity, manufacturer, here's part number instead of reference. So I added all these. So it's giving me all that information at this click of a fingertip because the SQL, the database behind the software, is what is actually driving all of this information. Every little bit. Now, say something got messed up and I accidentally corrupted this sheet. This happened before, right? You get into a software, you corrupted a sheet. All right, so here's what I can do. This is something that's actually kind of cool. I wouldn't do this without help. I wouldn't do this on a normal basis. But we use this file reference name. It's just a reference name for the SQL to give you some kind of visual. You can actually take that page 36 we are looking at. And let me look at this here. Project Manager. We are on this project called 76. If by chance I messed this up, I'm going to close it. Just so that you see that it's not there, I'm going to come in here and I'm going to actually blow it away. I'm going to blow it away. I'm going to make it so that it doesn't even exist anymore. And this is what's really cool about the software because that SQL is driving everything. So I said project, that was what, 76?
Yep.
All right, 76. I'm going to go into those drawings, page 36, right? I'm going to delete it. It's gone. Oh. So what do you think is going to happen when I click on it? Open it up over here. It's going to come up. Boy, are you right, Nathan. It comes right back up. Now, it lost a part to it. The reason it lost a part to it is I had changed it and made it total graphics. So think about this when you're doing very large schematics. Rather than losing all the work, think about SolidWorks. Your computer crashes. You didn't hit save. How much time did you lose? As much time as the last time you hit auto save, right? SolidWorks Electrical, whether you are working in the software, you don't have to hit a save button because the SQL is monitoring everything that's going on and capturing it. But even if you corrupted a sheet, you will be able to capture most of the work back without affecting the project. So just something to keep in mind. It's something that I have used on occasion. I have had a couple of customers that have had problems with very large projects. You can't just throw it away. You can't start over. You can come in here and delete the sheet. If I delete the sheet and I'm deleting it from my project, you don't want to do that. Here's another way to actually recapture some of that data is by going ahead and letting the SQL rebuild that sheet for you. Because now if I go back in to that file where I keep, mine is on a local system here. So if I go under that program data here and I go back to my SolidWorks Electrical and I go back to that project 76, you will see that it has recreated page 36 for me just now.
Why? Why did it? Just because you opened it?
Because the SQL, yes, the minute I open it again, the SQL knows that that sheet should have been there and will recreate it for me. The SQL is working this way. every device, if I look at this device has connections. Notice these connections that are right here. The software monitors every connection at every point, and it is set up so that the wire realizes it's connected from here to here. It realizes how it's connected and what it's connected to. All of that's in the database area.
All names are kept.
I'm sorry?
Or is it like mates?
It is not really mates. It is all through connections. The mates doesn't happen until we get into 3D. It's similar to mates, yes. It is somehow tied together. Because it's tied together, it knows it has information that will be transferred. This wire that was connected from connector to connector has intelligence. It knows what gauge of the wire it is. It has its own identity. So the SQL keeps track of all those identities throughout the entire project. How they're connected, what they're connected to, what the assignment is as far as what manufacturer, and it's bringing all of that together into a separate database that it then uses for that project. This 36EW is strictly just a visual representation of what is in the SQL that you drew. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay.
You keep referencing this SQL. Does that
Yes.
mean you have to be running a SQL server?
No. With any of our electrical products, we provide SQL Express to be utilized. It is part of the software package. It automatically puts in a small version of an SQL server onto whatever system you would be using if you were working in a collaborative environment. For me, it did put it in on my local system. My local system now has MS SQL with an SQL Express instance for the electrical product.
Okay.
Okay. Any other questions so far?
What are the operating system requirements?
Windows 7 or better. We do not handle XP anymore, so it must be a 64-bit machine. That's that about normally for electric that is, or for schematic that is not going to be utilizing 3D, we probably only need about 4 gig of memory. If you're doing 3D or doing some more extensive software development, then you can get up into what normally SolidWorks requires, which I believe is 8 gig of memory, I think is what it is. I think so. Yeah, I've never really paid attention. I've got so many virtual systems on my computer. You can reach, SolidWorks does support virtual systems as well. So we work on virtual systems just as easily. So it's not like you have to, even if you're using a UGNX system, or that is what you're using, is it not? Or Word? Yeah, Linux, okay. Or Linux, you can actually set all that up and still run without issue. Okay. All right, so back to these reports. So you have all these different reports available to you. Notice you also have something that we call these design rule checks. Design rule checks and audits. So right now, if I look, I can again go to this audit, and boy, that's getting a little bit irritating, isn't it? All right. Look at all these audits that I've got. I've got some company audits here, but I can go and look at manufacturer's parts that are assigned to components, but they're not in the schematic. So if by chance I happen to put in a motor, and I ended up not drawing it in because I didn't want it, rather than ordering it, I can actually put this audit in, and it will highlight saying there is no schematic, but yet it's in my bill of material right now. That's kind of convenient as far as saving money left and right. Some of the other ones here, empty terminal strips. I do this on a regular basis. I mess up and add terminal strips that I didn't put terminals into, so I've got terminal strips here and terminal strips there. You got that junction box that's out in the field somewhere that you're tying up to, and you end up not putting that terminal strip there, but putting it over here. You got those little junction boxes that you're putting on your robots. You put little terminals in them. Maybe, maybe not. This will allow you to flag those empty terminal strips so that they will not be part of your bill of materials as well. Duct filling ratios. Anybody that's ever built a cabinet knows that duct filling ratios are one of those things that you would love to have, because in my world, in automotive, they would create those ducts, and every cabinet that you opened up had tie wraps or welding rods holding all of those wires into the duct because they overfilled it.
Airlines.
Oh yeah,
That's it.
oh yeah, exactly. So this will actually calculate those ducts to tell you what the full ratio is, or the filling ratio is, so that if it's only 70% that you want, you can reroute those cables into other areas.
You have to do the routing in 3D for that. though,
You
right?
would have to do the
Okay.
routing in 3D for that, yes. This is a 3D collaborative calculation. But let's think about this. All right, so we've got all kinds of different reports. So I mentioned that you can do some new stuff with reports. You can add your own columns. You can add your own data. Yeah, we've got till, I think it's quarter after. A spare parts list. Wearable parts. Most companies do not even provide that as a service anymore. Why? It takes too much time. Who wants to actually look at their data and figure out what's going to wear out and what's going to not wear out in a bill of materials every single time? It's something as a customer, when I worked for Chrysler, when I worked for Ford, when I worked for GM, those were things we needed because those were the stuff that we would keep in stock. So we would have to go through the parts and try and figure out, but we didn't design it, so we don't know what parts we think would be wearing out. We would be guessing. What you can end up doing here is with these reports, every manufacturer that we have has quantity available. So in this manufacturer right here, if I look at the component, this manufacturer is this Legrand. If I look at that component, I have user data fields. I can add 20 of these just by hitting the customize button. 20 fields here, and there are another 20 fields here under the translatable data. So I've got 40 fields that I can use. I can use it for creating that spare part because I can actually just say user data 1. If I say spare part here, I can put it over here, and maybe I put 1, maybe I put 2, maybe I put 6 months repair, or every 6 months replace. I can put extra data in these areas that now will signify that if that column has something in it, that I'm going to create a report for it.
Does that do that? I mean, when you make an edit like that to a part file in your parts library, does it do that across the board to all your
It
parts?
can, yes.
It can?
Yes.
Or you can do it granularly?
You can do it granularly, but you do it on the component property rather than in the manufacturer. That is a separate area, but yes, you can do it in both instances. So if you think about this, I can create a preventative maintenance report. I can create a spare parts list. What if I wanted to cost out the entire project? I could put a cost in here and just add it up, just like I add my quantities for all my devices. Do all of that information all just from here. And then it would just be a matter of clicking another column because these columns are right there and available to you. And all you would have to do is say sum them up. And it will give you a total list. Some things that some people really haven't had a chance to even explore. You can add vendors.
You never told me about that one.
You can add vendors here. Maybe you buy things from a specific vendor. You can use this article number here, but at the same time, you've got the supplier and the stock number here. You could actually create your reports for your bill of materials from specific vendors. You may be buying them all from Grainger. It doesn't matter who they actually are manufactured by. You want to send a list of your purchasing agent to Grainger. Here's the list, and you just put Grainger in here, and it's in your library. You never have to touch it again. If you want to, you can have it updated. You can get into, some companies utilize ERP systems. You can actually bring in read and write access to those ERP systems where you can actually translate the data back and forth. However, just keep in mind, it does need to be, there are a couple of different types of databases that we use. Obviously, the SQL. We also do Microsoft Access. But some of the more less used database softwares, we would not be able to communicate to. So there is a direct link to some of those, but not to all. So just to keep that in mind.
Have you got an automatic check for like if you exceed a certain number, you can stop? I mean, you can do that.
Certain number of wires or certain number of quantity of
I mean,
devices?
you're using this for storing, building up inventory, or whatever.
Not necessarily storing and building up inventory. Purchasing would still handle that part.
Okay.
This would be on a project level, how many things you actually need for the project to develop it.
Okay.
So it would not necessarily manage what is being purchased. That would still be from the purchasing agent. You would actually export your file either as an Excel spreadsheet, a drawing, a PDF file, a text.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay? So that's kind of where I wanted to at least open up your eyes where you might be able to utilize this a little bit more than you may have thought about. Because custom reports, anybody can actually hit a button and do something simple like, well, let's see here. For me, we've got that report here for that bill of materials, and we've got, let's see, what do we got for the bill of materials? Still got it here. I simply hit generate drawing, and I check that button to say create that bill of materials, and it does. It tells me it's successful. I close it, and now when I look, here's the bill of materials. Now here's, well, I've got the wrong sheet size here. Let me quickly change this title block size. So I'm going to just replace it with a little bit larger title block. So we'll make it maybe a size C. We'll go with that one there. And just that one. Oh, it's a little bit too large. Let's try this one more time. Let's create another one. Oh, that's fine. All right, title block, replace. Let's find something a little bit smaller. How about that one there? Well, I'm not going to worry about it. But what it's doing right now, as you can see, it's giving you an Allen Bradley. This is just a template. Right now I've got 10 inches set up for these descriptions because I added those other columns to it. It has actually taken it off the page. So I've got Allen Bradley here, I've got LeGrand, it gives me part numbers, it tells me what those identifiers are, the tags that are in the software that it's using. I've got the descriptions, and even over here, it added all those pieces that I had added, my Z and my X and my Y, my lengths, it's giving me all of that here because of course the wires are no longer attached here, there's nothing here for that. I can go to my wire section and actually bring that type of stuff out for what it is, but of course think about this. How does a wire know from a 2D schematic how long it is? It doesn't. You have to tell it how long it is in manual. If you get into 3D, obviously you can start routing those wires any which way you want. Those hydraulics, the tubes for your pneumatics, you do that and now all of a sudden links are created right there for you. And then those actually feed back into here. So if I make a change over in 3D, it then, because it's all SQL driven, the change in 3D is then dynamically updated into 2D. If I make a change in 2D, dynamically it updates into 3D. So you've got all this interaction that's going on just because that database is behind it, constantly feeding itself information on how it's connected, what it's doing, how it's doing it, and you can just start utilizing that to grasp exactly what you are needing. Okay? Good? Everybody's happy with that? All right. Got a few more minutes here. Looks like a few more people are out there. Let's go into the next thing that we've got here, project macros. Project macros, what are they? How many people have used AutoCAD? What happens when you take an AutoCAD block It's got attributes already filled out. And then you explode it.
Not pretty.
You lost everything, huh? Every little piece. Well, the SolidWorks Electrical allows you to do some really cool stuff here. So say this device right here. Here's what I've got. This has intelligence, as you can see. It's got a device name, it's got a manufacturer. It even shows you how it's connected up with the wire labels. It all has intelligence. If I look at this detailed cabling right here, I want to add a cable. I want to hit detailed cabling. Right click, detailed cabling. It's got all that information. It's got every little piece. It knows what kind of information is at each one. Even if I come over here and look at the symbol itself and I right click, notice that if I look at the component, it has information here. It tells me it's Legrand. It has all the information here from Legrand. Those connectors are part of this circuit. Now, if it's a motor circuit, something you create on a regular basis and design all the time, over and over the same, wouldn't it be nice? But of course, what do you do right now? In AutoCAD, you save the project somewhere, you save that sheet somewhere, and then what you have to do is remember where you saved that sheet so that you can find that specific circuit so that you can do a copy and a paste the next time. But of course, if you've got 10 circuits, you have to remember, okay, I saved this one here, I saved that one there, because of course each project is probably saved in a different location. Where did I save all this stuff? SolidWorks Electrical allows you to use a library type function. That library type function can be as big as you want. If you design an entire robot, and then tomorrow your teacher says, I want you to design that robot over again, but I want you to make a change to it.
They would do that, not just students.
So what that allows you to do, so here you would have drawings that you would have to make copies of every single one of those. You don't have to do this in the software. You can do something here. Maybe I'm going to take this project right here and I'm going to create a project macro. Consider the macro to be as big or small of a project as you want. It is fully editable, but it's a library component, which means it's in the database. All I have to do is grab it, pull it in, it's all there. I can select it to be as big as, well, I selected the whole book. It creates that project. If I wanted to now duplicate that, all I have to do is come right back in here, right click, and say insert a project macro. When I do, and go to my unclassed elements here, there are, I don't know what name I actually saved it under. Did you happen to catch what name I put it under? Oh, I never do either. I'm terrible with that. All right, we're going to do this again. I'm going to highlight, we'll just highlight some of these pages. So we'll highlight from here to here. Click, create project macro. We're going to call it user group. Just call it user group. No way I can find it. All right. Create that. Now I'm going to come back in here real quick. Right click, insert project macro, and I'm going to filter this to find my description of, I think it was project name, macro name. There's the macro name. User group. There it is right there. Of course, it's not going to give me a preview because there's so many sheets, but I can now highlight that, drop that in. It takes a second. It's going to automatically ask me, okay, I've got that existing project. It's got all these numbers and all these connections. What do I want to do with it? Do I want to keep existing information? Do I want to change it to new stuff? So I'm going to actually keep most of the stuff, but I'm going to actually change those connectors. I'm going to tell it's got a new tag, new identifier. I simply come over here and say finish. And now it will take a second, but notice that it creates that entire set of drawings over again. All that information is there, which means my bill of materials is increased twice the size. So if I look at my bill of materials now, let's go to that report that we just saw just a second ago. Look at my bill of materials. Helps if I click on the right one. Now all of a sudden, if you notice, I've got more parts, more pieces. I didn't see that happen. I have to change. I bet you I have a new location. I probably changed the location on that. Let's double check. Can I hit update? Yep. Let's see where everything's at. So I created, which one? That was 220. 220 should now be 250. There it is.
You had 4 connectors instead of 2 in the bottom.
Oh, okay. So then, okay.
Yeah.
You were probably noticing it more than I was. So yeah, you got, so it just allows you to do that. You can also do that with as small of a project as you want.
And that still stayed connected to the original you copied from, so if you update the original and this updates this.
No. Now it is a library function that you brought into the project. It is now its own identity.
Okay.
Because it's all its own identity, it is fully editable. You don't want, if there's going to be those cases where you make a change to one circuit, you don't want the other circuits to change.
Okay.
So, no, this, once you bring it out of the library, you are making a copy of it from the library, putting it into your project.
So it's a new unique.
New unique identity, which means every little piece I can come in here and make changes to simply by just coming in here and saying delete.
Yeah, the paradigm's different. It's a little, yeah, once you throw it in, it's another.
It's like copying it to Thunder. It's
Yep.
not connected anymore.
Yep. So the last thing, of course, is that same type of scenario. We have the manager, or the macros here. If I look at that macro, I can do just a simple thing, even of just a circuit, just by highlighting the circuit, dragging and dropping. I can bring that in, put it into the library so that it is now available to actually start dragging and dropping back in as many times as I would like. So it makes things a little bit quicker, a little bit easier, especially with stuff you can design over and over again, but it's actually the same. And it's easy to find. It's in a library. It's in the SQL. So let's look at what else are we going to actually talk about. We've got locations. Locations might be something that we talk about later because we're actually about at 10 after. So I'm going to let you go out and socialize, catch up for your next group. We can continue with whatever questions you've got next session if you want to come back. Otherwise, there's some other great sessions going on too.
Is it pretty easy to use the software, like if you design a machine and
I can train this software in 2 days.
alright?
2 days. I just left Jackson this morning, or this afternoon. I trained a guy on how to use it within 2 days. Yes. I'm sorry?
It was already.
No, it was not.
You just picked up this out of nowhere? So if I
He didn't
design,
even have, in fact, he was creating all of his software, or all of his schematics in CAD key. He said it was miserable. Yeah. So yes, it's actually quite easy to pick up.
well, if you're designing like a control panel, is it easy to put that into SOLIDWORKS Mechanical
Yeah.
onto a machine?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, because you assign that where that area is, where you've got that component where you see the library manufacturing part, you can assign a 3D model to that unit. And so immediately, because of that tag, when you go into 3D electrical, now all of a sudden it's got that tag, it already knows what 3D model, you're clicking it because of the dimensions, it's readjusting it to that size, and then you drop it right into your cabinet. And then because it already knows how it's connected up from your schematic, you simply do a 3D sketch to say, I want to follow this path, and it will follow that path to actually route that wire into that tube or that hose.
That's pretty sweet.
Yeah, it is.
That's cool. Thank you.
No, no problem.